there, Mike Swinwood. How are you? I'm here today with Mike Swinwood, and he's a very dear friend of mine for many, many years, him and his wife, Sue. And I'm just such an honor and such a pleasure to have you here on my show. I'm Amina Motala, and I have a very special discussion I want to have to share with all of you. I think it's really important, especially with all the in the times that we're in April of 2020, and there is a lot of different emotions going on in the world. But I just would love to share some of this insight, and I think it'll be a really great discussion. So I hope you can stay to the end and watch it through. So Mike Swinwood, he is a lawyer here in Canada. He is a founder for Elders Without Borders, and we can talk a little bit and find out a little bit more about that. So thanks, Mike. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you very much. It's
Yeah.
nice to be here. Nice to see you. Nice to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been a while, actually. So maybe we can just do a sort of a little introduction, a little bit. I just mentioned Elders Without Borders, if you want to give a little description about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, basically, I started practicing law in what you might call the conventional manner for the first 20 odd years of my legal career. And then I had an epiphany, and I became deeply enamored with elders, Indigenous elders. And in 1994, an opportunity was presented to me to interview Native elders all over North and South America. So I took a sabbatical from practicing law for 5 years and basically interviewed elders all over North and South America, culminating in being with Grandfather William Commanda from the Algonquin Nation in Maniwaki. Started working with him in 1995. He actually traveled with Susan and I and our daughter Allura when we visited all these places interviewing elders, Hopi, Mayan, Inca, incredible wisdom keepers. And then it was William Commanda who said in 1999, go back to practice of law and help my people. So that was the inspiration for Elders Without Borders. The idea being that I would work with elders, continue to work with elders, and take direction from elders. And today, of course, Grandfather William Commanda passed away in August the 3rd, 2011. But I continue to work with traditional grandmothers from the Algonquin Nation, elders from around the world, and Douglas Cardinal, whose background is Blackfoot and who worked with William for many, many years. So I continue to work with Douglas Cardinal and presently traditional Algonquin grandmothers. A lot of insight was provided to us over the course of that time. Many teachings. We became very close with Willaru Waita from Cusco, Peru, who's identified as a Chasqui, which is a Quechua word for spiritual messenger. And we began to work with Willaru in 1998, and we continue to work with him in hoping to develop Mystery School, or the revival of Mystery School, in not only Canada, United States, but also in Peru. It's amazing that if you take your finger on a map and you place it on Ottawa, you draw a straight line, and you'll hit Peru.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like completely contingent. So we began to work with Willaru very closely. He, as I said, he's a Quechua indigenous person, which is in the Inca lineage. His master is Samael Aun Weor. W-E-O-R is the way you spell Weor. Samael is S-A-M-A-E-L, and Aun, A-U-N. So Samael Aun Weor is Willaru's master in essence, who's also in the spirit world. Willaru's story in and of itself is an amazing story. And I have to say, the very first time I came to know of Willaru was in 1994, We didn't meet him until 1998. But in 1994, I was looking at spiritual teachings, very broad-based, looking basically at all religions, seeking, where is the thread, where's the truth? And I came upon an article called The Awakening. And The Awakening was 3 pages long. And when I finished reading it, I was stunned, because for me it represented 16 years of esoteric studying. I had studied Alice Bailey, Helena Blavatsky, Rudolf Steiner, Krishnamurti, all of these people. And here I was sitting there reading 3 pages, which for me encapsulated all those years of study. And I looked at the top and it said, Willaroo Waita, Cusco, Peru. And I said, wow, I have to meet this man. So in 1995, I think it was, when we did get this contract to interview elders, we were on a journey to Mexico with Hunbat's men, the Mayan shaman. And we were there, Susan and I and Allura again, with William Commanda and his sacred firekeeper. And we spent 2 weeks in Mexico. And one evening, coming back from a temple site, we were having a discussion about amazing people. And I said, I'd sure want to meet this man I read, Willaroo Waita. And the woman who was from California, who had organized the Mexican journey, said, oh, I organize all this North American travel. And wow, we made a connection. And then in 1998, 4 years later, the opportunity came along with a budget that we were given to bring in elders from wherever we could on a $30,000 budget. And so we brought Willaroo in for the very first time, and we met him in 1998. And that was a gathering that was on Victoria Island and behind the Supreme Court of Canada. We had elders from Hopi, Maya, Lakota, Algonquin, Mohawk. I mean, you name it. We had representatives from all sorts of nations all over North and South America. The Mayans' ceremonies were incredible. And we did that for 8 days under the tutelage of Grandfather William Commanda, and really made some incredible links with wisdom keepers. And in doing so, we concentrated our work with the elders on prophecy, because it became very clear that the wisdom keepers worked with prophecy, that from their perspective, what was passed down orally from their elders was to be paid attention to. And so we became familiar with the white buffalo calf prophecy, the eagle and the condor, and many, many other prophecies from all these different disciplines: Inca, Mayan, Hopi, Lakota, Algonquin.
Yeah, and you're known as White Buffalo, actually, from what I've learned from you. For many of the communities that you visited across Canada, they refer to you as White Buffalo.
Well, I mean, that's a story in itself.
It is.
But I mean, you've raised it, so I'll hit what it is. First and foremost, white buffalo calf prophecy emanates from the Lakota people. And the prophecy is essentially about white buffalo calf woman who came to the Lakota people in, I think it's about 19 generations ago. And she gave the Lakota people the spiritual teachings. She brought them the pipe, and within the pipe are a big portion of the spiritual teachings, the stem representing the male, the bowl representing the female, and the knowledge and wisdom of the marriage. And when the sacred tobacco is put in the pipe, the prayer emanates from the man and the woman. And on and on. There's a much deeper teaching, but the bottom line is that she gave to the Lakota people the spiritual pipe and the teachings. Today, that pipe is carried by Arvo Looking Horse in Lakota, who was scheduled to be here in Ottawa on June 21st for World Peace Day, But with the situation we're in, it's not looking favorable. However, I digress. So a white buffalo calf woman said to the Lakota people, I'm going to give you a prophecy. And this is the Reader's Digest version of the prophecy that she gave. You will know that changing times are upon you when there is born a white buffalo calf. You will know it is the white buffalo calf of the prophecy, because on the day of its birth, the father will die, evidencing the death of the patriarchal system and the rebirth of the matriarchal system. You will know it is the white buffalo calf of the prophecy, because after its birth, it will change all colors of humanity and then go back to white. So on August 20th, 1994, in Janesville, Wisconsin, born to white ranchers who knew about the prophecy, was a white buffalo calf. The father died on the day of its birth of a brain aneurysm. It subsequently changed all colors of humanity and went back to white. They called the white buffalo calf Miracle. And Miracle lasted for 10 years, and then it escaped its enclosure, and the police shot it because they thought it was a danger. The white buffalo calf prophecy, I found among all the prophecies to be the most relevant. In the 90s, we were talking about change. We were talking about change that was coming. All of the indigenous prophecies were talking about the time of change. So I chose as a cover for a report that I did on my interview with elders, the white buffalo calf woman holding the pipe, and in the clouds above her in the sky was the outline of the white buffalo calf. That was 1994. So flash forward to 2004, and I was asked to go to Huntsville up in Algonquin Park and meet with people who were meeting on the weekends. They were mostly white people. There were some indigenous, but mostly white. And they were taking teachings from elders, practicing the Red Road, drumming, sweat lodge, all of these things. And so they'd gather every weekend. They'd have elders come and teach. And they had contacted me because they heard that I knew Willaroo Waita. So I went up, and they had said they collectively dreamt of going to Machu Picchu. And that could I come and tell them about my teacher, Willaroo, and Machu Picchu. So I did. I went up there, and I spent 3 hours with them. And at the conclusion, when I was leaving, one of the women who was at the gathering was driving in front of me on this little dirt road out of the cottage area. And she stopped her car, and she came back, and she said, I have something to tell you. And I said, well, what's that? She said, well, you have white buffalo calf energy all around you. I said, well, that's strange that you should say that because of my relationship to the prophecy, etc. And then she brought out a hockey bag from her trunk that she kept all her ceremonial stuff in. And then she pulled out a bag that a woman would keep her shoes in, like a shoe bag. Undid the drawstrings, and out came a white buffalo calf that sat in your palm. It was about this big. And she said, I've been doing ceremony with this for 4 years, and I was told that there was someone I'm to give it to, and that's you. And so she gave me the white buffalo calf. I was working with Yellow Dust Woman at the time, an elder from Alberta, who's since passed into the spirit world, but remains guiding us. And Yellow Dust Woman, I brought the white buffalo calf to her because the following weekend I was in Alberta. And I told her the story. I told her what had just occurred, what had happened. And she said, well, you give that to me. And she took it, and she went into her room and spent half an hour, and then brought me into the room, and I could hardly see because of the sage and all the candles that she was burning, etc. And she said, there, I've blessed the white buffalo calf, and this is a symbol for the people. This is a symbol that you take with you when you go to court, when you're in meetings. You bring it because it's a symbol of what's to come and what we're to deal with and how we're to deal with it. And so I've been guided, if you will, by that prophecy, basically because I firmly believe that the patriarchal system is in its last throes, and that the matriarchal system is returning. Obviously, in working presently with traditional Algonquin grandmothers, That's the focus of our legal undertakings, is we're doing it under the auspices of the traditional Algonquin grandmothers and acting in a way that speaks to traditional governance, that speaks to the power of the women, and that the answers for society as we see it and as we know it lies within the matriarchal paradigm. And that the White Buffalo Calf prophecy 19 generations ago from White Buffalo Calf women spoke to this. So it's all within what appears to me to be prophetic. And these instances and what I'm describing and what occurred, there's no happenstance in them. There's no coincidence in them. They're meant to be. It doesn't make me anything different than what I was. It only assists me to understand at a deeper level. It's almost as if you're sent something to confirm that what you're doing and what you're thinking and what you're attempting to bring about is on the right path.
What does that mean for you today in what we are experiencing? What do you, I mean, there's a lot we all, I think in some respect, we all reflect back to our lives in moments like these, and we're looking at, I am so many things that, you know, I've either been told or, you know, like you say, it's not happenstance, like there's a reason for a lot of the things that I've seen in my life, and what I'm able to now take from that and see looking forward. So for you, what does that mean?
Well, if you're referring to what's happening right now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so if you're referring to what's happening right now, you know, my first comment is that number one, we're cosmic beings. We consider ourselves to be like human beings, but in essence, we're cosmic beings, and we live in a cosmos. And the cosmos that we live in has a vibration presently of change. We're leaving the Iron Age and we're going to the Golden Age. This is cosmic cycle. It's happened in Lemuria, which was the third solar race. It happened in Atlantis, which is the fourth solar race. And it's happening here, which is the fifth solar race. We live in a Mahavantara, which is 3.4 billion years. And infinity is behind that. So that's first template I'd like to lay down as being foundational. It's important that we think of the cosmos. And when we do think of the cosmos, then the next thing we should think of is that what this is humanity's karma. Humanity has created this. Humanity has brought this on themselves. Because what we did is we took spirit out of the equation. And we replaced it with in God we trust on the back of money. And on the back of money, we really mean in money we trust.
Right.
So the focus for humanity has been materialism. And this has been the death knell for the Lemurian civilization in the third solar race. And the death knell for the Atlantean civilization in the fourth solar race. And here in the fifth, we've expressed all the errors. And it's karmic. And rather than bring our focus into our relationship to spirit and what that means to our existence on the Mother Earth, then the very first thing we have to examine is our relationship to the inner soul that exists in everyone and how that connects to the divine. And then our relationship to the Mother Earth and how we treat the Mother Earth. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that on this pause that has been imposed on humanity, that humanity's been asked to reflect on what this is and what this is about. The Hindu religion and holy books stand for the proposition of an acceptance of return. There's an acceptance that you have previous lives, that you have a present life, and that you will have future lives. So this concept of death that we're looking at right now, that everywhere is being put on the bulletin board of everyone's mind, is that in contemplating it, we may come to understand that there's no such thing as death. that there's only transition into another dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And that we've done this, probably one of the most practiced things human beings do is die and get rebirthed.
Mm-hmm.
So within the framework of that kind of understanding, within the framework of that template, then what we are in right now is huge transition. So if I'm looking at a pendulum, and the pendulum is solidly over in the materialistic world, and the pendulum, through its own force, through its own weight, can no longer stay there, that it has to transition into what's happening in terms of what the white buffalo calf prophecy is speaking about, which is the time of change. Then what we're going through is this transitory change, wherein things need to break down. You can't have rebirth without it breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
We're headed towards a golden age. I think the Bhagavad Gita, if I'm not mistaken, this is what the Bhagavad Gita has to say. The Lord declares, whenever true religion declines and irreligion prevails, I manifest myself, and in every age I incarnate to establish spiritual law and to destroy evil.
Mm.
So the Bhagavad Gita is speaking to this time. Behind me, in the portrait of the Kogi, which is on this shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
this shoulder, it's reversed. The Kogi, not many people on the Mother Earth know about the Kogi, but the Kogi reside in the Andes Mountains in the Santa Marta region of Colombia. The Kogis refer to themselves as the elder brothers, and they refer to us as the younger brothers. There's a film done by the BBC by a man named Alan Herrera. Alan Herrera was told by the BBC, we want you to go to South America, we want you to pick a country, and we want you to see if you can find any remnant of tribes who still express a spiritual connection. And so with little research, he just jumped on a plane and he ended up in Colombia.
Hmm.
And the first night he was at the hotel, came a knock on the door. And he opened the door and there was a Kogi. The Kogi said, "You're here to see us." And he didn't even know about them. So he went, and the film called The Kogi by the BBC, anyone can access it, is about his encounter with the elders who are called mamas. Mamas, notice that. The elders are called mamas.
Mm-hmm.
Now they reside at 15, 16,000 feet. You or I would not be able to be in their presence. Their energy and their vibration is too high.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be harmful to us and we'd be harmful to them.
Mm-hmm.
They have 3 tribes below them who are their caretakers, who are their messengers, who are the ones who in essence transmit the messages that come from the elders. And in the film, they basically say, the elders, the mamas are saying to you, you're destroying everything. You're ruining the Mother Earth. You're not respecting her. And in doing so, you're killing all of us. So the Kogis, that film was done in the 90s.
Hmm.
That was their message. It's
Right.
2020. It's 2020.
Yeah.
And it's not reverberating to people. They're not hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Why is that? Why do you think? There's a lot of that I hear and see.
well, it's consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
It's pure and simple consciousness. So we've dumbed down the consciousness in the material world. And in dumbing down the consciousness in the material world, we're not a bunch of seekers. You know, the education that people have that they think is of high nature is about getting a job, make some money, and be happy. But it's not about finding your soul, making a connection to spirit, and becoming what it is that you truly are.
Mm-hmm.
We're human doings, not human beings.
Correct. Yeah.
So within the framework of the concept of what it is that we need to do, the only way we're going to change the world is to change ourselves. When you change yourself, you'll begin to contribute to the change of the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think that you're going to get out ahead and get a bunch of people and pull them together and say, look, this is what we need to do. Okay, all right. But what have you done to yourself and with yourself? in relation to your connection to spirit. I've been immersed in a bunch of Swami books lately. Books about Babaji, Yogananda, Ramakrishna, incredibly beautiful, inspiring books, which speak to dedication of certain human beings who go into the Himalayas, they go into caves, and they contemplate the divine, seeking to find themselves not only samadhi, which is the highest level of concentration and meditation, but nirvana. What happens to a lot of them is they become avatars, or they were born avatars when they were born, and they just evolved into the role of an avatar. And of course, an avatar can be defined as the expression of the divine in the physical form. Krishna, Buddha, the Master Jesus, these were all avatars. But if you check out the Swami books, you'll find that there's avatars existing in the Himalayas right now. There's avatars existing in Kogi, in the mountains in the Andes. There's avatars existing in the Sacred Valley in Peru. But we pay no never mind to these because they don't fit in to the paradigm of materialism. So the disconnect is there.
It's vast. I mean, I think, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The Buddha said, the Four Noble Truths, the existence of suffering. I'll just make sure I got it right. The truth of suffering is the first one. The cause of suffering is the second truth. The end of suffering is the third truth. And the path that leads to the end of suffering is the fourth truth. Now contemplate that. If we understood all of those truths, if we were in pursuit of those truths, then what would happen to the Mother Earth? Then suddenly we would be with the Mother Earth. See, we're all midwives. We're presently all midwives because the Mother Earth is preparing her birth canal for the golden age. Therefore, climate change, therefore, virus, therefore, all of the cleansing, purifying energy that's happening in order to create the soil for the acceptance of the coming one. And the coming one is said to be Lord Maitreya. This has been prophesied in all religions. Every religion prophesizes the coming one. And in relation to the coming one, what I read you from the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita, says it 100%. This is it. All of the Swamis that I have been studying point to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. So the yoga, you have to understand that the word yoga means union with the soul / divine. That's really the true meaning of yoga. So yoga is union with the soul and the divine. So the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali is essentially a book that allows one to make the step-by-step journey following the Four Noble Truths. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali are easily accessible now. Because of the internet, you can find these online. And the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Book 1, Book 2, Book 3. Book 1 is an identification of the obstacles and hindrances that you have to rid yourself of. Book 2 is the discipline that you must undertake in order to get rid of those obstacles and hindrances. And Book 3 is what you can expect from having traveled the journey of having spiritual discipline to bring you to that point. One of the things that's emphasized over and over again in the Hindu tradition is the discipline of spiritual practice. And this, in essence, is where a human being should turn themselves to in this time. Worry, anxiety, fear, all of these things make the choice under the fear. And fear, the acronym is false evidence appearing real. The choice we have to make is love. The only thing that holds all the planets and all the galaxies from not colliding with each other is love. And this love comes from the divine. And we are divine, but we place the hindrances and obstacles. And as my teacher Willaroo in Cusco, Peru explains, the Inca cross identifies 3 steps for humanity to elevate their consciousness. And the first step is the elimination of the egos. So the egos essentially block humanity from this understanding of making the journey suggested by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And the 7 egos are represented in the 7 cardinal sins: lust, anger, pride, envy, greed, laziness, and gluttony. And all humanity is invaded by these egos. So the teacher basically says, look, if you want to really understand what we mean by egos and how you deal and how they control you, contemplate for a moment a man walking down the beach. And the first thing he sees is a beautiful woman in a bikini. And immediately lust comes out. And the teacher says, look, if you really want to deeply understand the egos, assign an animal to each. So the black dog is lust. Anger is the bull. Pride is the peacock. Envy is the seagull. Laziness is a monkey in South America called the puño puño, so sloth-like can hardly peel the banana to feed itself. And greed and gluttony is taken by the pig. Mm-hmm. So 6 animals, 7 egos. So back to the man on the beach. He's walking down the beach, sees a beautiful woman in a bikini. The black dog comes out, lust. That's all he has in mind. He sees the woman as an object of his lust. He goes a little further down the beach and somebody says, you know, you owe me money, I hate you. And the black dog retreats and the bull comes out. Goes a little further and somebody says, you know, you are the most wonderful human being we've ever seen on planet Earth. And the withdrawal of that other ego. And out comes the peacock. And on as he walks down the beach, right? Envy because he sees some beautiful mansion, etc., etc., etc. So Willaroo says, look, you need to concentrate on transmission of impression. So everything comes to us in impressions and mostly invisible. You know, people cast their vibration, let's just put it that way, and people pick up on their vibration. That's an impression. It's silent, but it's an impression. Mm-hmm. So we begin by pausing so that when we're walking down the beach, rather than seeing the woman as a lust object, we suddenly see the woman as a representation of the goddess energy. Mm-hmm. We see her as a representation of the fulfillment of male and female energy, which brings about creation and is therefore at a higher level, at a higher dimension. Willaroo says the easiest way of getting into understanding how you can help yourself is to know that here in your third eye is your father, and here in your heart is your mother. And so the commandment that said, honor thy father and thy mother, had nothing to do with the biological mother and father. It had to do with this father and this mother, who are the expression of the divine in every human being. And so aboard, you have a father and mother. And we, as prodigal sons and daughters, go out into the material world, seeking material comfort and material happiness. And suddenly it hits on us, or it dawns on us, that there's something empty inside. And we come back to the home of our father and mother and find they never left us. They're always there. So as Willaroo says, always, always ask your father and mother to assist you, to starve the egos. Don't feed the lust. Don't feed the anger. Don't feed the pride. Understand how we feed them is our mind. And the mind is the most powerful tool that we've been gifted with. And therein lies the consciousness. And that consciousness is connected to a universal consciousness. And therefore the path forward is through our intuition, not through our physical, not through our emotional, not through our mental, and not through the intellectual capacity of the mental, but through our intuition. It has been said that you could define intuition in the following way, /in. So in, tuition. And tuition would be the payment, bracket karma, for a private, bracket mystery school. Payment, karma, for a private mystery school. So that in essence, what occurred before the Inquisition, let's just say, before the Inquisition, all around the Mother Earth were mystery schools everywhere. Egypt, we just have to reflect on Egypt mysteries and mystery rites. Greece, Europe, all over North and South America, everywhere in the world were mystery schools. Now, what happened in the Inquisition is they went to extinguish the lights.
Right.
The light of the Cathars, the light of the Essenes, the light of all of these mystery school places, and put it out. When they came to South America in 1493, that's exactly what they did, dim the light. In Peru, the Sacred Valley, all of the guides for the sacred sites call them ruins and identify them as being armaments to push away the Spanish, but that's not what they were. They were mystery schools where the Incas taught spirituality, and the Spanish specifically came to dim that light. So the revival of mystery school is one of the important things for humanity, because within the framework of the revival of mystery school comes true education. So again, back to being a cosmic being, back to being active in the cosmos. What I seek to do then is become a human being and stop being a human doing. And it's within that choice that then, as I change myself, I can contribute to changing humanity, because then I just become one more light in all of the lights cast by humanity.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity that arises from this crisis is that.
That's fascinating. And I think with all that you're saying, there's so much that can be related in a lot of the religions, the Bibles, the Qurans, the Torahs, because it's interpreted in many different ways, and it's told to us in many different even with language. Language also changes the essence of a lot of these old teachings. But I think what you're saying encompasses truth in a lot of these, in these, but some of them are Dharma as well. I guess, we're at a time where people are contemplating a lot of these faiths and their faith, and where, which is real, what is not, and there's argument, and there's so much going on. What can you say to that can help, us? And for me, it's going within, and really feeling where I stand with my universe and my creator and my spirit. I want to ask you that, and also on a legal aspect, because you are a lawyer in our world, but I'll get to that after. I do want to ask you a little bit about that and where we stand with that, and what's happening as well. But go ahead.
Well, first and foremost, your mention of all religions. If you examine the sacred scriptures of all religions, Judaism, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, you'll find a common thread. You'll find the exact same truth expressed, perhaps in just a bit of a different cast. And I don't mean that C-A-S-T-E, but C-A-S-T. You will find it expressed in different language, but in the end, the thought is identical. And we come from the one. We come from the one energy. It is said that Willaroo says, you live in the third dimension, length, breadth, and width. There's 48 cosmic laws that apply to the Mother Earth in the third dimension. You can't overcome them. You can transcend them. If you follow a path and a journey, you can transcend them, but you can't overcome them. Mm-hmm. But they exist. And so the law of electricity, the law of gravity, these are the kinds of laws I'm speaking about. In the fourth dimension, there's 24 laws, half as many. And actually the fourth dimension energy resides in the Mother Earth. As Willaroo expressed to us, when he went on his journey when he was in his 30s and 40s, he had two questions. Are there such things as crystal cities in the inner earth? And are there such things as ascended masters? And he went on an Amazon walkabout with a backpack, and he came upon a tribe, and they said, yeah, these things exist, but you're not ready. You have to be initiated in order to access what you're seeking. And so they are the ones who taught him about the Father Mother. They taught him, that was the first thing they taught him, was the existence of the Father Mother. And he accessed the fourth dimension. He's been with beings in the inner earth. This exists all around the earth.
Mm-hmm.
So there are sacred places all around the earth where the fourth dimensional energy exists. The fifth dimension, there's half as many laws again, 12. Sixth dimension, there's half as many, 6. And in the third dimension, or seventh dimension, there are 3 laws: positive, negative, neutralizing force. That's the creator. The creator always expresses in 3: Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva. All the time, the Trinity in every religion you'll find. So the one expresses through the 3, then through the 7, and then through the 12 and the 13. So all of this numerology has significance in relation to the one and in relation to the divine. So the answer is, they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
But you can pick, you can decide, I'm going to follow this course, I'm going to follow that. There's many paths, but in the end, they all become one path. They all become the one thing. And the one thing is inner work.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't go inside,
Right.
if you don't go within, you're going to go without.
Right.
And that's where it's at. That's where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
So all the answers to every question that arises at this moment in time is within. Mm-hmm. And the intuition will bring you there. Uspensky, Russian philosopher who wrote In Search of the Miraculous, Tertium Organum, The Fourth Way, an incredible philosopher, 1920s, 30s from Russia. He said, because of Inquisition and all those kinds of things, sacred teachings were buried in fairy tale. So he said, take the story of Cinderella. He said, that's really an allegorical tale for the spirituality of a human being. There are 4 main characteristics of the human being: physical, emotional, mental, and intuitional. He said, so the 4 main characters in the Cinderella story are the horses, the carriage, the driver, and the princess. So the horses represent the emotions, the carriage represents the physical, the driver represents the intellectual, and the princess represents the intuitional. And you don't get to the magic ball unless the princess tells the driver how to get there. So within the framework of magic of existence, the mystery of existence, it's all within. And the components that have been offered to a human being that I've just described is that the intuitional is where we need to reside. The horses will only take you through the forest from pillar to post. The physical, I can pump iron all I want, but it's not going to bring me to the divine. Mm-hmm. The logic, 1, 2, 3, doesn't equal magic. It only equals the science of what we know as the science of science. But the true science, where all science emanates from, is the divine. I think it's Albert Einstein. Go look up some of the quotes of Albert Einstein. Mm-hmm. One of his famous quotes is, "Problems are never solved by the consciousness that created them." Mm-hmm. So that's where we reside. We're in that. We're in the problems created from the past by us as humanity. The fact that the Americans elected Donald Trump, and we can go on about Donald Trump and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but they elected him. So he's a reflection of the consciousness that put him there. So that the consciousness that has to be overcome is all within us. So never mind him. How am I going to change myself in order to be in with what's on in the cosmos? Change. 100% change. 100% transition. So Wilderoo says there's 7 solar races in this solar system. There was a previous solar system. There were 7 solar races there too. Same idea was humanity trying to spiritualize, and they didn't make it. The moon is the dead planet that was the previous Earth in the previous solar system. In this solar system, the 7 solar races are, the first one was Adamic, and the second one was Hyperborean, and both of them were in the womb of the mother, inside the Earth, in the 4th dimensional energy, That's why the story of Adam and Eve. We emerged from paradise, 24 cosmic laws, into 48 cosmic laws, onto the surface of the Mother Earth. And that was the third solar race, which was Lemuria, the land of Mu. And that rose to a high peak and it descended into the Pacific Ocean. And remnants can still be found. Hawaii, Easter Island with the large statues, because humanity were 18 feet tall at that moment in time. You'll find sacred sites all over South America where the steps are made for someone who's good 12 to 15 feet tall. They're not
I know
made.
David Icke has spoken a lot about that specifically. Yeah.
Well, and then the second one is the fourth solar race is Atlantis. Same thing, rise, fall into the Atlantic, and the remnants are right behind you there, Greece. That's Atlantic that it fell into right behind you. And so here we are in the fifth solar race. Have we evolved? Atlantis was way more evolved than we were. Way ahead of us, way, way, way ahead of us. Now, it is said, though, that in the Lemurian time, humanity conquered the physical. Then in Atlantis time, we conquered the emotional. And here, we're here to conquer the mental.
The mental. Yeah, interesting. So that's fascinating. And what about for legal, like right now I'm working on a video talking about Magna Carta. So getting into the legal part of it and the structure of this system that they formed. And, you know, with Magna Carta, it was fighting the barons, you know, confronting the king to give more rights to the people, which then was incorporated part of that into the US Constitution. So, you know, how does that play out on a legal stance for, you know, there's a lot of talk too going on right now about what are your rights, and do we have, you know, do we want to have our liberty, and do we want it taken from us? Can you speak? I know you're a lawyer as well, so can you speak on that a little bit?
So that's really involved. That's really involved. Okay, you know, strictly from a legal perspective, where we're at is we're also in a major transition. The legal system is taking quite a hit, actually, from where we're at, and the difficulty in relation to the issue of rights, the difficulty that emerges here is that when we have a patriarchal system, and that patriarchal system reverberates throughout the Mother Earth, empathy and compassion and love don't fit into the equation. And when they don't fit into the equation, you can scream and yell and rattle your chain as much as you want, but you're crying to the wilderness. We can bring about change to a certain extent in relation to freedom and liberation, but it doesn't resemble what I've just been talking about, because the consciousness is vibrating at too low a level. So I can go and I have Pyrrhic victories in court. I can, you know, force things on people to do certain things that they haven't been doing. But in the end, it's a mug's game, because there's no repository of the concepts that are being discussed by avatars. We took the spirit out of the equation. So as a consequence, it's just a bunch of rules and a bunch of things that are suggested as being your rights. And then you go to the place where they have the rules and you say, well, you gotta do away with that. In 1493, Cortez came to Hispaniola, which was the Dominican Republic and Haiti at the time. And he basically said, I'm here on behalf of the King of the universe, who's the Pope, and the King of the land, who is the King of Spain. And I'm here to tell you that we're going to bring some people with a book, and we're going to teach you about the book and what's in the book. Should you accept the cross and the crown, we will give you privileges and exemptions Should you tarry in this task, will kill you. That's law. Privileges and exemptions. So in law, it's either a privilege that you can enjoy or an exemption that we have given you.
Right.
But beyond that, there's nothing for you.
So we're not
but
free in any way.
It's privileges and exemptions. Now, where I'm speaking from is this. I act on behalf of Indigenous people. The one thing the Indigenous people have going for them in relation to the concept of liberation and freedom is that it was stolen. It was taken away, blatantly, obviously taken away. In America, what they decided to do was shoot them. They did it in a more subtle way here. They did it with the pen and paper, write you out. But the bottom line is that they have something that they can cling to and actually has value.
Here meaning Canada, just so.
Correct. Yes, in Canada. In Canada, they can cling to this because there's an opening by virtue of the obvious theft. They pretty well shut that down in the United States with the gun.
Right.
So that from a legal perspective, we have to be on the wave of the change of consciousness, so that we have to understand this at a deeper level. And understanding it at a deeper level, then change will come about. But thinking that, for instance, that the Magna Carta is going to help me a lot, it's not. The Charter of Rights is going to help me a lot. It is, but it's limited, is the point I'm making.
Sure.
And there's so much of a bigger undertaking here. Going from the Iron Age to the Golden Age, this is monumental.
Yeah.
So within that cosmic vibration, the law will evolve. It will evolve.
Well, this is where I find it interesting because, as you know, I work in the blockchain space, and I'm I've been in it for a few years, learning a lot about it. And what I can interpret from my own perception in all of this is we are exactly, we're going into this transition. Now there's a technology growth about to happen exponentially on the planet, and that's inevitable. When I look at that and this falling of an old system, a collapse of a financial world, which is a currency, which is what they control us by currency, as you say, in God we trust, in the back of their dollar bill. So it's a huge control that they have on us, and they have for I don't know how many years, but thousands or however many. And in this world, in this reality, it is with currency that they're controlling us on one level. So we're dumbed down, like you say. We're in this consciousness that is in a lower realm. And in order to get to where you're saying, it's not going to happen overnight. We're not going to just be downloaded instantly, all this, wisdom. So in saying that, the way I see this, I look at what I'm learning in this world of technology is that we're being introduced to something that is different than anything like we've known before. But in it, there's a window of opportunity that we can use and take this and apply to ourselves to help us to move forward into a more liberated state, obviously over time. Now, using this technology, let's say it's that in that way with consciousness, it will help to raise our consciousness as we have a feeling of we are moving forward on any level. Like the things that are being created, it's pretty incredible what I'm hearing. There's so many incredible things happening. So saying that, and yes, there's a currency attached to that too. But I see it as whether that's the way or not, if that is a way, these are tools to get us and move us into a direction that can take us to that place where we won't need some of those things. Maybe we won't need money. We won't need some of these things, but gets us, it's a bridge to get there, and over, a span of many years, I would imagine.
I don't think so.
No way. What? Okay. Well, I'd love to hear your view.
Yeah. Well, what I've been saying for this last little while is what this is about is an inner journey.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that we're going to get anywhere is the raising of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And the elevation of consciousness comes from this within journey. The idea that the vibration of the Mother Earth, for instance, right now is raising. The vibration of the Mother Earth is elevating, but we're unconscious of it. We're not paying any attention to the idea. When you talk money or currency or Bitcoin or anything, it's all just energy. That's what it is. It's energy.
Yeah.
And within the framework of the control issues that you're speaking about, these go back a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
the papal bull of 900 took spirit out of the equation. So we'll look after your body and your soul, but this spirit stuff, forget about that, because that's your connection. All religions where priests and nuns come into play, not just Christian, but all religions where imams or nuns or priests come in, they place themselves as being your conduit to the divine. Well,
right.
They're not. So within the framework of what you're talking about in terms of technology and tools, etc., they're not going to do the job.
No, I don't.
Unless the consciousness raises, right?
Right.
So therefore, within the concept of what it is that I personally need to do in order to bring about change, I have to concentrate on myself and what I can change within myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I look at the situation as it is presently, I know specifically I have to make a choice between love and fear. I have to. And if I choose fear, then I'm going to go over and tip over. If I choose love, then there's going to be that opportunity because all crisis presents opportunity. So I'm going to have that opportunity to grow. Now, within that growth comes the change that you're speaking about.
Sure.
And so really the Mother Earth is going to guide me. I remember an elder that we were with in Vermont. Her name is Dahani Yawahu. She's Cherokee. An amazing woman who combined Cherokee traditional teachings and Buddhism. Imagine. So she combined the two of them in her practice. And I'll never forget, as long as I live, this one moment. There was Susan and I and Allura as a baby, Grandfather William, and Peter de Conte, the sacred firekeeper, and Dahani Oahu in her house in Vermont. And she said this: listen to the wind. It will tell you everything. That's never left me. Never left me. So, it was profound,
mm-hmm.
because within the framework of it, what she was saying was, sharpen your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
Make that your goal.
I understand that. Yeah.
And the only way then to achieve that is to adopt a spiritual practice. Meditation is the key for humanity right now.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is the manner in which we will sharpen up that intuition. But it requires a commitment from inside that most people are not prepared to do. Mm-hmm. And because they're not prepared to do it, then quite frankly, they're going to be running around thinking that outside of them there is a solution. That solution will lead to liberation. That's not so. That's only a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you away from the central thing. Again, back to being a human being in a cosmos. So how much money do you think there is on the planet Czar? I don't think that it's like that. Uspensky in Search for Miraculous, he was being taught by this incredible shaman from Turkey named Gurdjieff. Lots of people know about Gurdjieff. And Gurdjieff became his teacher, and mostly in Search of the Miraculous is Uspensky talking about the teachings that Gurdjieff gave. And Gurdjieff's ideas were revolutionary. because what he was talking about was consciousness. He was constantly talking about consciousness and basically saying, this is where you have to concentrate. And he said to him, you think the First World War started because somebody shot somebody else? He said, it's more likely that it was two planets that came much too close together, and all of you on the earth are now slaughtering each other. So in other words, the kind of energy that flows onto the Mother Earth from the cosmos has much more of an impact than anything that you can imagine. But how many people are in touch with that? How many people will go out at night and lie down and look up at the sky and go, oh my God, oh my God.
I'm one of those people.
Well, and so within the framework of that lies the answer. There's where the answers are. And so if I deepen and deepen and deepen, then I'm going to come to it.
Yeah, it's an incredible journey and incredible times, and I think these are very wise words right now, that, you know, I hope it can help anybody at this moment, you know, what we're all going through and where we're going to be going. So I think we'll end it here because we've been talking for quite a while and it's a lot of information to take in. So
I'll read you something, a little very quick.
Sure.
This came from a friend of mine. I received a message from the dolphins and the whales last night. If there really is a virus or a deep state that is trying to control us, it is only a representation of our own darkness. We are all one mind and heart, and any darkness that exists is only possible because it is also exists inside of us. The reason our 3D humanity is in the perceived crisis is because we have been living in duality and separation. Humans believe that the world is controlled by those with money. Your infinite consciousness knows that this is simply not true. Money is just an energy. It is not true power. The only true power is that which comes from our eternal soul, love. Moving forward, the only way to heal this world is to have the courage to look inside our own darkness and to truly love, accept, and forgive ourselves. The mirrors of the world reflect back what needs to heal. What we hate in others exists inside of us. Looking at our shadows to unite with our light and become whole, this will shift the collective vibration into its highest timeline.
It's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
Let's end it here. It's
okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right. Okay, ciao.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, you're welcome, Amina. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.